In the humid, neon-drenched arteries of Mumbai and the crumbling colonial shadows of Kolkata, there is an urban legend whispered by those who live between the hours of midnight and dawn. They call it the Shunya Auto, the zero fare. In a city of 20 million people, where every rupee is counted, where every kilometer is a negotiation, and where every meter is a battleground, the idea of a free ride isn't just a blessing, it's a trap. The legend says it only appears after 2 a.m., when the city's roar finally fades into a heavy, suffocating silence. You'll be standing on a deserted corner, perhaps in Colaba or near the Salt Lake stadiums, watching every yellow and black taxi pass you by with their occupied lights glowing like angry, unblinking eyes. The street lights flicker, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to move when you aren't looking. Then, out of the thick, oily smog, you hear it. A low, rhythmic thrum. Chug, chug, chug. A sound that doesn't quite match the mechanical snap of a modern engine. It sounds organic, like a heavy iron heart beating inside a chest of tin. It looks ancient. The yellow paint is flaking away like dead skin, revealing a rusted, dark metal beneath that looks like dried blood. The canvas top is shredded, flapping in the wind like the wings of a dying bird. There are no advertisements on the back, no colorful stickers of gods or movie stars, just a bare skeletal frame. And the driver never looks back. He is a gaunt silhouette wrapped in a charcoal gray shawl, his face hidden entirely by the deep shadow of a hood. He doesn't negotiate, he doesn't ask for a price, he simply waits in the silence. Rahul was a man who belonged to the shadows. As a corporate auditor for one of the city's most powerful firms, he had spent his life chasing missing numbers, balancing books that were never meant to be balanced. But tonight, he was running from them. He had discovered a multi-million-dollar fraud, a black hole of corruption that went all the way to the top. He knew he was being followed. He could feel the eyes in the dark windows of the high-rises. He could hear the footsteps echoing behind him on the pavement. He stepped into the back of the rusted auto, his chest heaving, breathing a frantic sigh of relief as the vehicle lurched forward without a word spoken. "Lower Perel," he muttered, clutching a heavy leather briefcase to his chest. "And please, hurry, I'll pay double." The driver didn't nod. He didn't even shift his weight. As they moved, the city began to change in a way Rahul couldn't explain. The neon signs of the luxury hotels and the glowing billboards didn't just pass by, they smeared into long, glowing streaks of light, like wet paint on a moving canvas. The sound of the city, the distant horns, the barking dogs, the hum of electricity, all of it died away. Rahul looked at the meter. The glass was cracked and fogged with a strange gray condensation. Inside, the numbers were spinning, but they weren't counting rupees or kilometers. They were counting seconds, and they were going backward. 248, 247, 246. "Hey, the meter is broken," Rahul called out, leaning forward. His voice sounded thin, as if the air in the auto was too thick to carry sound. "Look, I don't care about the price. Just get me to Perel. I have the cash right here." The driver remained a statue of gray fabric. Rahul reached into his wallet, pulling out a 500 rupee note. He leaned forward to hand it to the driver, but as his hand entered the front cabin, the temperature dropped 40 degrees. The air smelled of old incense, burnt copper, and damp earth, the unmistakable scent of a fresh grave. He saw the driver's hands on the handlebars. They weren't hands. They were long, pale spindles of bone, wrapped in skin as translucent as parchment. There were no rings, no watch, no signs of life. Just the steady, mechanical grip on the vibrating metal. "Stop the auto," Rahul whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Stop the car right now." He grabbed the handle to jump out, but when he looked out the side, his stomach plummeted. The street outside was no longer Mumbai. The familiar landmarks, the shops, the trees, the pavement were gone. The road was a narrow strip of black glass, cutting through a void of swirling, infinite gray mist. There was no sky, no stars, just a crushing, silent emptiness. The driver finally spoke. The voice didn't come from a throat. It vibrated through the metal frame of the seat, traveling up through Rahul's spine and echoing inside his skull. It was a sound like grinding stones and static. "The ride is free, Rahul. Why do you offer paper for a journey through the soul?" "What are you? Where are we?" Rahul screamed, his knuckles white as he gripped his briefcase. "We are in the Shunya, the place between the heartbeats. You were at a dead end, Rahul. You were running from a life you could no longer sustain. We are simply providing the exit." "I don't want an exit. I want to go home." "Home is a concept of time, and time is the only currency we accept. Look at your burden, Rahul. See how it lightens." Rahul looked down. The heavy leather briefcase, filled with the evidence that was supposed to save him or destroy him, was turning to dust in his lap. The leather was cracking, peeling away into gray ash that floated upward into the mist. The papers inside, the names, the dates, the signatures of the corrupt were fluttering away like dead moths. But the horror didn't stop there. He looked at his own hands. The skin was yellowing, wrinkling into a roadmap of age. His veins were turning dark and prominent, bulging against the thinning flesh. The hair on his arms was turning white before his very eyes. A sharp, stinging pain flared in his joints. His vision began to blur, the edges of the world turning soft and gray. He realized the terrifying truth. The auto wasn't burning fuel. It was consuming his time. For every meter they traveled in this void, a year was being stripped from his life in the world above. "Please," Rahul begged, his voice cracking and becoming a rasping wheeze. "I have a family. I have a wife. I have so much left to do." "You were running from your life," Rahul vibrated, and for the first time he thought he heard a note of pity in the static. "You chose the ride that doesn't ask for a fare, but nothing is ever truly free. We are simply helping you reach the finish line faster." Rahul tried to pray, but he couldn't remember the words. He tried to think of his wife's face, but the memory was being erased, fed into the engine to keep the wheels turning. He felt his memories of childhood, his first love, the smell of the rain, all of it being converted into the rhythmic chug, chug, chug of the machine. He was becoming a hollow shell, a man without a past, traveling through a world without a future. The auto screeched to a halt. The sound of the brakes was like a human scream. The gray mist evaporated instantly, replaced by the harsh artificial glare of high-intensity streetlights. Rahul found himself sitting in front of his apartment complex. But something was horribly wrong. The Grand Heights sign that had been gold and polished that morning was falling on the ground, half buried in the dirt and choked by thick, thorny weeds. The glass of the lobby was shattered. The trees he had seen planted just last year were now massive, gnarled giants with roots that had buckled the sidewalk. He tried to stand, but his legs were thin sticks that barely supported his weight. He was a 90-year-old man in a tattered, oversized suit. The briefcase in his hand was nothing but a handle attached to a few scraps of rotted leather. He turned to look at the driver, but the auto was already dissolving. It didn't drive away, it simply faded into the air, leaving behind only the lingering smell of ozone and wet earth. There were no tire marks on the road, no sound of an engine, just the wind whistling through the ruins of his life. He hobbled to the gate. A security guard he didn't recognize, a young man with a device strapped to his wrist that glowed with a blue light, looked at the withered old man with a mixture of fear and confusion.
"Who are you? What are you doing at this hour?" the guard asked. "I live here," Rahul croaked. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping against stone. "Apartment 1204. I'm Rahul Vance. I just took a ride." The guard pulled up a shimmering display on his wrist. He scrolled through records for a long time, his brow furrowed. "There hasn't been a Vance in this district for nearly half a century, Baba. The last one was a man named Rahul. He disappeared on a Tuesday night in 2026. They say he left his office and vanished into thin air. His wife waited 20 years for him to walk through that door before she passed away in a state-run home. This building hasn't been inhabited in over a decade. It's scheduled for demolition tomorrow."
Rahul collapsed onto the cracked pavement. The realization was a weight he couldn't carry. He had reached his destination. He had escaped the auditors, the criminals, and the debt. All of his problems were gone. But so was the world that contained them. He had traded his entire existence for a 20-minute ride in a rusted cage. He looked up at the moon. It was the only thing that looked the same cold, uncaring eye in the sky. As the first light of a strange technological dawn began to rise over a city of chrome towers and silent hovering vehicles, a city he no longer recognized, he heard a familiar sound from a nearby alleyway. Chug, 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 chug. A young woman, dressed in a modern corporate suit, was running down the street. She was crying, looking over her shoulder at a black car with tinted windows that was slowly following her. She was desperate. She was at the end of her rope. She reached the corner and stopped, gasping for air. Rahul tried to shout. He tried to raise his withered hand to warn her, to tell her to run, to tell her that the price was too high. But his lungs were empty. His voice was gone. He could only watch as the rusted yellow and black frame drifted out of the shadows like a ghost to meet her. The girl looked at the driver, then at the empty back seat. She didn't see the rust. She didn't see the bone-white hands. She only saw an escape. She stepped inside. The engine roared to life with a sound like a final breath. The vehicle lurched forward, carrying the girl into the gray mist. And as the sun hit the pavement where Rahul lay, he finally realized the ultimate truth of the zero fare. You don't pay when you get in. You pay when you realize you can never get out. The sound of the engine faded into the distance, leaving only the cold wind and the steady, silent ticking of a heart that had finally run out of time.